What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for July 3rd, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition, the day before a long holiday weekend in the summer. Today might be the least productive day in your office, other than possibly right before Christmas. So if you're suffering through work like all of us will be today, and you have nothing to do, you're not doing work, spread the word. Have people listen to the podcast. Have them subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott. Have them follow me on Twitter and TikTok, Jimbo_Mott. Instagram at Philly Jimbo. Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm on all of them. But more importantly, have them subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott. Have them vote in the Ultimate Philly Sports Nickname Tournament. Today is a good day for me as the podcaster. Spread the word. Nobody's doing anything in the office. Some people are off, but most people have to work today, and it literally is probably the least productive day. Don't even bother working. Catch up on the archives. Spread the word. Have some conversations. It's all good. It's America's birthday tomorrow, so take it, just mail it in. Mail it in. You're going to mail it in anyway, so mail it in and help spread the word for my podcast as well. But I'm glad to have you, and if you are new because somebody in the office recommended it, thank you, and welcome to this day in Philly sports history. Hopefully you're going to have some fun, and tell your friends and family as well. But let's start with the Phillies. What a win for the Phils. And I thought going into it they were going to win this series against the Cubs. I thought last night would have been the day they lost with Michael Mercado on the mound. But no, it doesn't matter who they put out there unless it's Tawan Walker. Mercado was solid, 5 innings pitched, 4 Ks, gave up a run. Jose Ruiz was a little shaky, but then Jeff Hoffman came in and slammed the door. But a different guy stepped up. Trea Turner stepped up yesterday, went 3 for 5, 2 homers and 4 RBI. Bryson Stott had 2 hits. So far since Schwarber and Bryce have been out, somebody different each day has stepped up, and that's what they're going to need. And if one of those guys can remain hot, I'm not as concerned. But it does appear that both Bryce and Schwarber probably will be back before the All-Star break. I saw Bryce running in the field yesterday. Schwarber was getting some workouts in. Even JT was in the bullpen throwing. So the Phillies have managed to somehow stay afloat and actually increase the lead. They're at a 9-game lead now because the Braves lost. So there's just something about this team that hopefully, knock on wood, they can continue to stay healthy. Healthy-ish, I guess I'll say. But man, it just doesn't matter. They remind me so much right now of the 2017 Eagles, where it doesn't matter who goes down, who steps in, they're going to do it, whether it's Mercado. You see guys like Dahl and Clemens had a big game last night. It doesn't matter. And that, to me, is a sign of a good team. So, good win for the Phils last night. The game of the series, I thought they were going to lose, but they're back at it tonight at 8. And let's root for the Giants this week too. And I think, like I said, we're at the point, especially with the way the injuries are, that we need to keep it on top of what the Braves are doing. Braves lost. So I will take it. 9-game lead heading into July 3rd. Let's keep it rolling tonight. The other thing you need to keep rolling is going to Philly Goat, because that's another great way for you to support the podcast. They have the John Kruk is My Spirit Animal shirt, which 10% of that shirt sales will benefit the Battle Brothers Foundation. They do great things for our veterans. It's a great patriotic thing for you to do right now. And we all have this toxic relationship with Philly sports. Philly Goat has the shirt that symbolizes it. It says, I have a toxic relationship with Philly sports. So go check it out and buy the shoes. I wore the shoes. We took the kids to our pool swim meet yesterday just to kind of give them a sense of what's going on, to see if it's something they'd be interested in. Had a couple comments on the shoes, and they were so comfortable. There's a lot of hills at this pool, so they were just like wearing sneakers and much more comfortable than Hey Dude. So go check out the canvas loafers. Get the Kruk is My Spirit Animal shirt to help out Battle Brothers, and then get the toxic relationship with Philly sports just because. Be sure to use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. That promo code is what gives the podcast credit for you buying your shirt. So go phillygoat.com, use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. All right, some more on the Paul George signing, and the story I read yesterday was pretty cool. Apparently, he met with the Sixers, and when they came, it was Daryl Morey, Elton Brand, a couple other guys, and then Josh Harris was flying out with Dr. J. Well, first of all, the plane with Harris and Dr. J was delayed, so they called and said, "Hey, Paul, can you give us a minute?" Blah, blah. And he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So they didn't end up meeting until 10:30, but this is what I like that Paul George did. He said, you wait for Dr. J. So the fact that they brought Dr. J out to talk about the Sixers it was great. But they met with Paul George at 10:30 p.m. Pacific. They showed up to his house, and he was wearing an Allen Iverson jersey, or an Allen Iverson shirt, which I think is amazing. So it's almost like he knew what he was going to do, and it goes back, I think, to the whole Joel Embiid little flirtation thing. So, I mean, the more that this, as time goes on, the more I'm liking this signing, because take the money out of it. I mean, it is what it is. The Sixers have the cap space. It's not our money, and contracts are just going to continue to get out of control. But what I like about this is, and I've said this 1,000 times already, is that obviously it's who Joe wants. But thinking about the quote-unquote big three, as everybody's been calling it, they all three bring something different to the table. And Paul George coming in here, yeah, he's older, and that was always my concern. But as I'm actually starting to think about it, and maybe I'm talking myself into it, I don't know. But the more it's coming out and the more things are going, he's not going to have to be the alpha dog. That's Joe. And he's not going to have to be the slasher and this, that. That's Maxey. So he's going to be able to kind of play his game, take the game as it comes to him, knock down some shots, play some defense. When Joe's on the bench, he might have to do a little bit more of that. But I think the way that their games all balance each other out, I think that's why this is going to be a good fit for the team. Obviously, health is the biggest concern, but that is any team, any sport, any year. Yes, it's a little bit different with the Sixers because of Joe's history, as well as Paul George being an older player, and he also has some injury history. But the more I think about it, the more I like it. They still have a few more different pieces that they need to sort of fit in. One of those pieces, under no circumstances, I saw way too much of this yesterday on Twitter. I kind of mentioned it yesterday, but I'm going to mention it again. Ben Simmons should not be on anyone's radar if you are a Sixers fan. Stop it. This is, and I know this is kind of funny coming from me, who talks all the time about the Sixers being the crazy ex that I always go back to. Do I need to refresh your memory? The Atlanta Hawks series when he passed up an open layup. Do I need to remind you all the summertime, and you can see them now because he's posting them for the Revenge Tour, all of the summertime workouts where he's shooting. Now he's working with, I forget who the player is he's working with, Rajon Rondo. No, don't forget, he's a bum. He always has been. He always will be. I don't want to hear, oh, they need somebody who can pass and play good. No, we don't want or need Ben Simmons. I think you bring Ben Simmons in, it completely undoes all the goodwill right now that we have. So please stop even thinking about it, because there is no world, no situation, no scenario where Ben Simmons coming back to the Sixers is the right move. So I know it's been a few years, and how many games has he played since he left Philly? Exactly. So no. I feel like I'm talking to my dog right now as he's trying to go to the bathroom on the floor, or he chews like a towel or something. No. Get the Ben Simmons thought out of your mind. No. That is way worse. That's like, I don't even know what that is, but that's not good. So no Ben Simmons. No, not under any circumstances. Buddy Hield, I saw this morning. It looks like the Sixers and the Warriors are trying to work out a sign-and trade with Buddy Hield. Not really sure who the Warriors have. I don't necessarily want to take on any expiring contracts. So there were some options where if the Sixers sign him, trade him to the Warriors, they can somehow get some draft pick back. I'm fine with that because then you can possibly use some of those draft picks. Don't want to completely deplete our draft pick capital, but maybe you can use that to trade for somebody else who is out there. But kind of monitor that. We'll see what happens with that. But it looks like Buddy Hield is not going to be back with the Sixers. And based on the other moves and the draft picks, I'm kind of okay with that. But I will tell you what I don't want. No Ben Simmons. So no. All right. Danny Briere is still telling you to be patient with the Flyers. I know a lot of folks are like, don't tell me to be patient. We got Mishkov and we expect this. And if you've been following me all along, I've been saying it's a marathon, not a sprint. They sort of have their eyes open to next year and next offseason. And I think based on the fact they almost made the playoffs last year and now Mishkov is coming over, I think that is raising people's expectations and excitement level, and obviously rightfully so. But I think you need to keep it in perspective and understand that, yes, this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not going to be next year we're playing for the Stanley Cup. The schedule, it does look like the early part of the schedule is brutal, but it's the opposite of what they had this year. So maybe they can get battle tested early in the season in October, and then come March and April, they're able to really turn that loose. But just remember, Danny Briere said, I'm just as excited as everybody else for Mishkov to come over, but we have to remember to be patient. And I've been telling you this for a couple years now, but be patient. I think you get the growing pains and everything like that, see what you have this year, and then you can make splashes next year. And then moving on from 2025 on, then we can start talking about being a perennial Stanley Cup contender. All right, today, before we get into today's official This Day in Philly Sports History, I did mention yesterday the Phillies were slumping on this around this time in 1993. We talked about today technically is the day that doubleheader ended at 4:40 this morning. So ironically, on this day after that Padres series, the Phillies did make a trade with the Padres. It was their biggest trade acquisition for that 93 season. If you remember, they kind of let things, they were playing so hot and very similar to the way this team is, where everybody was just stepping up doing good things. They didn't have a ton of needs that they needed to do as far as trades at the trade deadline. But today they did make the trade for Roger Mason, who played in that doubleheader and pitched against the Phillies. And then after the doubleheader is when they made the trade. But Roger Mason ended up becoming one of the key pieces in that bullpen down the stretch. And truthfully, probably the Phillies would have at least been forcing or ready to go to a Game 7 with a chance to win that World Series had Fergozzi not taken him out. I forget what game it was, 4 or maybe it was 6, or maybe it was 4 and 6, now that I think about it, that he took him out in favor of Mitch Williams. In both games, obviously, Mitch Williams blew it. So Roger Mason came to the Phillies on this day in 1993. But our main event for today, we're going back to 1965. And on this day in 1965, the Phillies lost to the Reds 10-8 down at Connie Mack Stadium. Phillies actually had a 7-4 lead in that game. Dick Allen had 2 triples and 4 RBI. The bullpen, though, imploded and gave up 4 runs in the top of the 8th. Frank Thomas, though, came off the bench. Not that Frank Thomas, but Frank Thomas came off the bench and hit a pinch hit home run in the bottom of the 8th to give the Phillies the tie, and then the bullpen gave up 2 runs in the top of the 9th. That's not the story, though. The story is what happened during batting practice of this game, and probably what is most remembered in Phillies lore. And I'll give you a quick summary. There's a lot to this story, a lot of background and everything, but the quick, I guess, Reader's Digest version is Dick Allen punched Frank Thomas in the face, who then Frank Thomas grabbed the bat and swung it and hit Dick Allen in the shoulder. And so the reason there's so many levels to this story is because everybody has a different version of it. But for the most part, the consensus was Johnny Callison and Dick Allen, while they were taking batting practice, were giving Frank Thomas the business because he had struck out the day before. Now, background on that, apparently Frank Thomas, it was, and Richie Ashburn even kind of confirmed this, that they all busted balls. That's basically what they did. But Frank Thomas was one of those guys that would always take it to the next level. They said he wasn't necessarily a mean guy, but he just didn't know when to stop with it. Like, there's that line, and I'm sure you all know this. There's the line where, okay, it's funny, we're just busting balls, and then you cross that line, and it's like, dude, all right, we get it. Like, it's not funny anymore. And so apparently Thomas crossed that line. Now, he also was one of those guys that couldn't necessarily, he could dish it out, but wasn't very good at taking it in return. So that is what led to this altercation. Like, they were busting balls, like, hey, you struck out yesterday, blah, 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 blah. And then he took it and said something with racial undertones to Dick Allen. And this is where the story kind of varies. I think Frank Thomas says, he said, oh, you're going to be Cassius Clay and just keep running your mouth. There are stories that he called him a black bitch, he said cat, basically, and then took it a lot further with, I forget, something, it was like a play on the N-word and Cassius Clay, whatever, and that's what pissed Dick Allen off. And Dick Allen said, yo, you crossed the line. And then this is the story still gets a little convoluted from there. Apparently, Dick Allen said, oh, I've made it perfectly clear my intentions were to come over and punch him in the face. Like, he was looking at me when I came over, and everybody knew I was going to punch him. Frank Thomas says it was a sucker punch. He wasn't expecting it, and both of the guys are dead now, so we're never really going to know the true story. I think the real story is somewhere in the middle. I think Thomas definitely, because it was the mid-'60s, so racial tensions, especially in Philadelphia, were high. So I'm sure there were definitely some racial undertones in what he said. I'm sure knowing the fact that he was a guy that took things too far and couldn't take it played into that. It's July. I'm sure it's hot. But we'll never know. But the bottom line is Frank Thomas got punched in the face by Dick Allen, and then Dick Allen got hit in the shoulder with a bat that was swung by Frank Thomas. So needless to say, both of them ended up having great games. Frank Thomas came off, tied the game with a pinch hit home run. Dick Allen, 2 triples and 4 RBI. But after the game, the Phillies released Frank Thomas, who was pissed, obviously. And the Phillies then did tell Dick Allen to keep quiet. I guess they gave Dick Allen a chance to accept Frank Thomas's apology. Dick Allen said, no way, I'm still pissed about it, which I get. But then it's what happened after that that really kind of is where the plot twist is, I guess you could say, in this story. Thomas went on a media binge, kind of making himself the victim and ultimately trying to save his reputation because, I mean, he's 35, trying to hang on a couple more years in the major leagues. And if you have the reputation of you're going to swing and hit your teammate with a bat during batting practice. So he was saying he was the victim. He was self-defense, protecting himself. And I already mentioned the political climate and the racial tensions that were going on in the mid-'60s. Obviously, the white media, or white fans, I should say, who actually liked Frank Thomas was a fan favorite. He was traded and brought over for the 64 season. But the fans loved him, and they turned even more so than what they already were against Dick Allen. And they never had a great relationship dating back to the year before, which was his Rookie of the Year. He won the Rookie of the Year, and a lot of fans just didn't like him. And ultimately, it just got worse and worse as his career progressed. And then ultimately he was traded. But I don't know. You can make the argument. I saw this in a couple of the things I was researching getting ready for this, that you can almost circle this incident on this had this incident not happened and Dick Allen ended up staying in Philly, that maybe the fans would have been won over. Maybe this is impacting his Hall of Fame career. You don't know, but it's one of those stories and one of those things that will forever live in Phillies lore. But on this day, 1965, Phils lost to the Reds 10-8, but Frank Thomas got punched in the face by Dick Allen, and then Dick Allen got hit in the shoulder with a bat. Thomas was released. The Phillies told Allen to be quiet. Probably at the time was the correct move, but I think Allen probably should have said, no, this is what happened. And I think he would have, maybe not at the time, but maybe later on would have gotten more sympathy. So one of the more crazy events and situations and incidents in Phillies history. But on this day, it was the infamous fight between Frank Thomas and Dick Allen, where Thomas got punched in the face, Allen got hit in the bat with a shoulder. All right, on to the Ultimate Philly Sports Nickname Tournament, and let's start with a recap of yesterday's matchup. And in our Ben Franklin region, no shocker here, the number 1 seed, the Broad Street Bullies, beat Speedy Morris. 90% of the vote went to the Broad Street Bullies, so they will be moving on. And then out of the Cheesesteak region, just as expected, this one went right down to the wire. Brad Lidge, lights out, jumped out to an early lead, but Shady won the overnight vote. So the number 9 seed, Shady McCoy, is moving on with 60% of the vote. As always, thank you for participating. Now let's get into today's matchup. And today, first, we're going to start with the Balboa region. We have the number 1 seed, the Executioner, Bernard Hopkins, taking on the number 16 seed, Bird Dog, Scott Hartnell. Let's start with the Executioner. And Bernard Hopkins, in my opinion, is the greatest boxer to ever come out of Philly. Again, mad respect to all the Joe Frazier guys out there, but pound for pound, Bernard Hopkins is the best boxer to come out of Philly. You can prove me wrong if you want. 267-495-8531 on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Hopefully we can get some commentary on there. And if it's not Bernard Hopkins, let me know who. Pound for pound, who's the best boxer out of Philly? Anyway, Bernard Hopkins, two-time champ at different weight classes. So he was a middleweight champ and a light heavyweight champ. He had 19 consecutive defenses of the middleweight title, which is a weight class record. He also is the oldest boxer to win the world championship 2 times. He beat George Foreman's record and then beat his own record a couple years later. Ended his career with a 55-8-2 record with 2 no contests, 32 knockouts. He's in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Got to meet him last year when he was inducted into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. And his nickname, the Executioner, comes from his combination of his speed and precision when he is boxing, just like an executioner would be. And I think this nickname, though, you got to picture the whole entrance and the whole deal with Bernard Hopkins coming in with the hood, with the X's up. One of the most intimidating and, quite frankly, one of the coolest boxing entrances that I've ever seen. Basically a WWE style entrance when he came out. But the number 1 seed in the Balboa region is the Executioner. He is taking on the number 16 seed, the Bird Dog, Scott Hartnell for the Flyers. Scotty was here 7 years, 106 goals, 129 assists, was acquired via trade for Kimmo Timonen and a first-round pick for Peter Forsberg. And Hartnell played a big part on that 2010 Stanley Cup run. He was an all-star the next year and is a fan favorite. I know a lot of people know him as Hartsey, but his name for most of his career was the Bird Dog, and that is because of his style of play. Could not find the specific origins of like who started calling that, but I assume it had to do with his knack for being able to find the puck and things like that. So that is our Balboa region matchup today. The number 1 seed, the Executioner, Bernard Hopkins, taking on the number 16 seed, Bird Dog. Now it's your turn. Which Philly sports nickname is better? 267-495-8531. That is the Back to the Future voice and text line. Again, that number is 267-495-8531. Text me, call me, get that vote in. Hit me up on the social media, as I mentioned before, Jimbo_Mont, Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram, Facebook. Text message me, whatever you got to do. But that is our Balboa region matchup. The Executioner takes on the Bird Dog. And then out of the Schuylkill region, we have an interesting matchup of Eagles here. We got the number 4 seed, the Axeman, taking on the number 13 seed, Big Play Slay. Let's start with Jeremiah Trotter, the Axeman linebacker from Stephen F. Austin via Hooks, Texas. He played 8 years in Philly total, 98 to 2001, 04 to 06, and then came back for a swan song in 2009. Cutting him or getting rid of him, I forget whether they traded him or cut him, but getting rid of him and letting him go to Washington, ultimately, in my opinion, you'll never be able to tell me any different, cost the Eagles that Tampa Bay NFC Championship game and a shot at a Super Bowl during the Andy Reid era. But for his career in Philly, Trot had 7 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, 7 fumble recoveries, 11 sacks, 4 Pro Bowls. He's in the Eagles Hall of Fame, and the story behind his nickname is a great one. Growing up, his family, they weren't necessarily poor, but they struggled to get by. So his dad would chop a lot of wood for families and sell it that way. Obviously, Jeremiah had to be one of the ones to help. So even when he started playing football, he would still, after practice, come down and chop the wood. He was drafted. Unfortunately, his father's health declined and was never able to see him play in the NFL. So as a way to honor his father, that's where the whole axe celebration came out. And Jeremiah Trotter, that's what he's known for. Makes a big play, gets the axe, and chops the wood. So the Axeman is the number 4 seed in the Schuylkill region. The number 13 seed, Big Play Slay, Darius Slay, current Eagle, was traded from Detroit in 2020. 4 years so far, 9 interceptions. It's one of the leaders of that defense. Sometimes, I'll give you both sides of this. Sometimes his mouth can get him into trouble, but that's okay if his play on the field continues to be what it is. Definitely needs to step up this year. Hopefully he can serve as a mentor to some of these young guys, but they can kind of push him to take his game to the next level. So the origins, though, of Big Play Slay also has Philly ties. So when he was at Mississippi State, I think it was Mississippi State. Yeah, Mississippi State. I always get Mississippi and Mississippi State confused. But while he was at Mississippi State, Jeff Collins was one of the defensive coaches, and he was a former Temple football coach. So there's the Philly connection. But Jeff Collins recognized Darius Slay's talent immediately and said, I'm going to call you Big Play. You know why? Because you're going to make a big play, and I know you will. And then he just started calling him Big Play, Big Play Slay, Big Play Slay. The name stuck, and Darius Slay, to his credit, has made quite a few big plays in his career. But again, now it's your turn. Which Eagle has the better nickname? Is it the Axeman, Jeremiah Trotter, or is it the number 13 seed, Big Play Slay? Get your votes in. Call the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531, or hit me up on the socials. But 2 big matchups today. You got the Executioner versus the Bird Dog in the Balboa region. Then you have the Axeman versus Big Play Slay in the Schuylkill region. Who wins? Who has the better Philly sports nickname? Let me know. Get your votes in. On this day in 1965, Frank Thomas and Dick Allen got into a fight where Thomas got punched in the face, Allen got hit in the shoulder with a bat, Thomas got released, and all hell broke loose for the rest of Dick Allen's tenure here in Philly. Phillies also acquired Roger Mason on this day in 1993, who played a pivotal role in that World Series run. Sixers, what do you think? Ben Simmons? I think no. Maybe I'm missing the big picture. Maybe I'm still PTSD from that Atlanta series. But if you think that Ben Simmons should come back to the Sixers, call me, give me an argument for it, and try to convince me. But I just don't see it. Phils look to win 2 in a row against the Cubs today out in Chi-Town. Tomorrow's the 4th of July. Again, nobody's doing any work today, so put this on in the office, spread the word. I kept it pretty clean, I think. So spread the word. Let's grow the thing. Happy July 3rd, everybody. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for July 3rd, 2024. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Wednesday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.